very warm welcome to Emirates International School, Jemira. My name is Barbara Exley and I'm Head of Primary. You are with us this morning as you're looking at our school to educate your child. I can assure you, you will not be disappointed. We're going to take you on a journey to have a look at our school, and I hope you will meet some of our amazing students. I'm going to introduce you now to Scott Kirkland. Scott is our curriculum coordinator and he's going to lead you on that journey. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Miss Exley. And I'm Scott Kirkland, the curriculum coordinator here at Emirates International School, Jemira. And our curriculum is IB. Now, IB starting down in the early years department, which is on our ground floor, then going up into PYP, our primary years program, then across over into high school for our MYP program and DP program. Now, our early years department is all on our ground floor, and the beauty of it being on the ground floor is that every single classroom has direct access to the outside. So that allows us to take the learning from inside the classroom to outside the classroom. And being early years, it's all play-based learning. It's all learning through inquiry with hands-on experiences. Even in COVID times, we have smaller class sizes to allow for that social distancing. Now, let me take you up our stairs to our Years 1 and Year 2. Now, up on our first floor, we have our Year 1 and our Year 2 classes. Also, we've got some of our other amazing facilities that we've got in this new building, which is around 2 years old now. Now, behind me here, we've got our art gallery, and behind there we have our music room. Now, in post-COVID times, Years 1, 2, 3 and 4, we'll be having some of their music in there, getting more of that hands-on learning that IB is known for. Now, across in our corner, we've got our multi-purpose hall, and in our multi-purpose hall, like the name suggests, lots of different things happen. We'll be having a lot of our PE in there, especially during the hotter months, as well as teachers' professional development can happen in there, and as well as some of our extracurricular activities. Now, behind us down this corridor, we've got one of our first science labs. Now again, in post-COVID times, that's where the students get to go in and do some more of the hands-on scientific learning that is imperative to them developing those inquiry skills. Now, what we'll do now is take a stroll down this first corridor here and have a look at some Year 2 classrooms. Now, being an IB school, we cover our 6 units of inquiry each year. They tend to work out to be each half term. Now, if we look at Year 2, they were looking at how we organise ourselves. And they had a central idea that was people create systems to meet the needs and wants of a community. And that's what the students learn through. And that's broken down into lines of inquiry. As you can see, the first line of inquiry for Year 2 has been the diversity of food from around the world. Now, all of their science, all of their language is coming through those lines of inquiry. Now, if we look at that as our example, the Year 2 students were looking at habitats. And as part of that, they were looking at that scientific knowledge of seasons and how the seasons affect different habitats. Now, being IB, we look for conceptual understanding. Now, conceptual understanding means that bigger picture thinking. So the teachers asked that broader question of what seasons are. Now, and what does this word season mean? Now, one of my very proud moments as an educator father, my daughter raised her hand and she said, season is a set of TV shows. Now, she wasn't wrong. Slightly embarrassed, but wasn't wrong. Another boy said, a season, it's a football season. Now, all of these answers are correct. The piece of knowledge they had to have was spring, summer, autumn, winter. But the conceptual understanding that the students were gaining was that this word season had a bigger meaning, something more deep than just 4 facts. So the teachers kept questioning and they came up with their own generalisation. So in Year 2, the students were now discussing this word season in terms of a length of time. Now that knowledge is transferable rather than just facts. And as you can see, that started to come out in all of the habitats that they've had to develop as part of their learning. Now, being an IB school, we have our learner profiles. Now, they're set down from IB, and there's 10 of them. But Emirates International School, Jemira, we decided to make them our own. So we took what the IB statements and what they gave us, and we gave them to Years 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. And we asked the students what it meant to them. So they started to take ownership over it. Now, as part of this learning, the students designed their own learner profile certificates, their own learner profile posters that had meaning for them. Now they're phased across the school. So we've got different ones for years 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 compared to our year 2 ones. So we can start to see that progression that the students are going to be making against those learner profile statements. The beauty of it is it now all flows seamlessly. Now, as part of our reporting process, you'll be getting information on your students' development against the IB learner profiles that you know has been personalised by students. I think that's really powerful because it's students taking control of their learning. We're going to head on down our corridor too. We're going to have a look at some of our art rooms as well. Okay, now we're up on our second floor where we have our years 3 and 4. Now, we also have some other amazing facilities up here with us as well. We've got our second science lab, which again, during post-COVID times is used for the students to come into and really engage in some hands-on learning. Now, behind me, down this corridor here, we have our fabulous library. It's one of the best places for students to go, relax and read. Now, during our COVID times, we can't exactly use it, so all library learning is done in classes, but it's one of the best spaces in the school. Now, reading makes up a major part of our curriculum and it is one of our focuses. We really encourage all of our students to have a book with them at all times on their desks, in their bags and at home. Now, reading makes up a major part of our home learning as well. Now, one of the biggest questions I always get asked is, what's the difference between an IB curriculum and other curriculums around the world? Now, most curriculums around the world are already starting to go more inquiry-based. It's just that IB's been doing it for a lot longer. Now, one of the best examples I can give is if I was teaching in the United Kingdom, I'd be doing a unit on Roman Britain. And I'd have my class learn all about Roman Britain. We'd be looking at what they wore, what the soldiers did, how they fought, their buildings, their structures. We'd be looking at all of those things. The students would be creating fact files at the end of it and they'd take home a little pack of different artefacts they've made. But at the end of it, all that information is pretty useless because we don't live in Roman Britain anymore. Now, within an IB education, we would flip that. And instead of just looking at Roman Britain, we'd be looking at invaders. And then we'd start to pull apart what invaders were. Now, even if I was working in the UK at an IB school, I'd still be bringing in all of my content about Roman Britain, but I'd be putting the lens of invaders on. That turns it into more of a transdisciplinary learning. When we start thinking about transdisciplinary learning, I'd then be bringing into that a lot of my sciences. When we start talking about invaders, looking at habitats, what plants come and invade, what animals come and invade habitats. When we look at our human body, when we have viruses like we have at the moment, what viruses are now invaders. When part of my computer sciences, I'll be looking at viruses and computers. So instead of just learning about one thing, I'm now learning about a broader conceptual understanding of invaders, where again, I'd be looking at different countries as well. So instead of making it narrow, I've now broadened it. And I'll be bringing in a lot of my approaches to learning and my skills into that. Now, with some great examples of this as we walk down our Year 4 corridor. Now over here we had a science lesson with Year 4 where they created some figures, but the whole lesson was based around light and shadows. Now they were doing this through art and this was all linked back to our sports day. So you can have a look where during a science lesson they were modelling using tinfoil for art. The students didn't know if it was an art lesson or a science lesson. They knew that what they were trying to achieve was an understanding of how shadows are formed and how shadows move. And in doing so, they were creating their figures for art and they were linking that back to their sports day. Now, as an IB school, that's what we want to try and achieve so that we break down those barriers between lessons so it becomes about the learning rather than the subject. Now, if we head on back down this corridor again, we can have a look at where Year 4 learn. Now over here we've got some of our Year 4 learning from 4U. Now it's the start of their 4th unit of inquiry and they're looking at sharing the planet. So the first thing the teachers are going to be doing is looking at tuning into what the students already know. So we've got a great display here where the teachers have asked them, how can we help the environment? because that's looking at one of their lines of inquiry. You can see some of the learning and some of the knowledge that the students are already bringing into the classroom. Okay, so now let's head across to our year 5 and 6. Here we are in our junior school block where we have years 5 and 6. Now on the ground floor, we've also got our junior school hall, and on the first floor, we have our junior school library. Now behind me, we've got our houses: earth, fire, air and water. Now each child is put into a house and they earn house points through their behaviour management, through their exceptional learning. And as you can see, it's a very tight race at the moment. Now we'll head upstairs to the first floor and I'll talk you through about our PYP exhibition with year 6. Here we have another great example of transdisciplinary learning where for year 6, their last unit of Who We Are, they looked at the human body and how the systems of the human body fitted together. Now that went across into their Arabic A learning as well. Now again, that's just a great example of what we try to achieve here at Emirates International School, Jemira, breaking down the barriers between subjects so we focus on learning. We'll head down here and we'll have a look at some more year 6. Now over here we've got some great examples of independent learning from our year 6 students. Independent learning to try and prepare them for exhibition, which I'll come to in a moment. Now the students were looking at an experiment looking at how to make blood, looking at plasma and looking at red and white blood cells. They were given instructions and they had to do it themselves. They had to gather